Are you looking to move to Scottsdale, Arizona? Well, if you are, you're probably like I was 20 years ago when I made the move down here to this beautiful desert city. But there was no YouTube. There were no resources to kind of give me the heads up as to what to expect if I was going to permanently make the move down here. Well, this video is everything you're going to need to know, the main things, the good, the bad, the ugly possibly, as to what you need to be aware of, what anyone needs to be aware of before making that move. So let's dive in. But first, if you want to skip the rest of the video, just contact us here at the information below. We'd be happy to talk to you about your specific situation. We're specialists in the Scottsdale area. We live here, we work here, we play here, and we'd be happy to talk to you at your convenience. So why am I talking to you about Scottsdale, Arizona today? Well, not only am I a resident, a long-time resident, 20 years in the Scottsdale area, but I'm also a husband. I'm also a father. I have a family of 3 kids, and we absolutely love living here in Scottsdale, Arizona. But when I moved here, I was single. And I think it matters if you're single, or maybe if you already have a family looking to make a move to a new city, because you're gonna have different interests, different likes, different needs and wants in that lifestyle you're trying to provide for you and your family. But if it's just you might have a whole different outlook on how that's going to play out. So what are those things to be aware of if you're going to make Scottsdale your next home? So let's back up a little bit and give a little history on Scottsdale. Now, from a geography standpoint, if you look at the map right here, you can see that Scottsdale is 31 miles long and it's 11.4 miles at its widest part in the central area of Scottsdale. It is much bigger than most people think. It is the 47th largest city in the entire country currently today, and it spans 184 square miles throughout. It was incorporated finally in 1951 by a former Army chaplain, William Scott, thus the name Scottsdale. And it sits at the base, the foothills of the gorgeous McDowell Mountain Range. And one of the geographical things that is unique about Scottsdale is that it is landlocked on all sides. To the north of Scottsdale, you have the towns of Carefree and Cave Creek and the Tonto National Forest. To the west, you have the towns of Phoenix and Paradise Valley that borders the city. And to the east, you have the Salt River Pima Native American Reservation and the McDowell Mountains. And then of course to the south, you have Tempe that it bumps up to. So it is surrounded and kind of landlocked, which also, by the way, makes the land that's still available, which is only about 2 to 3% of the entire city that's left with privately held land, to be able to have some sort of development. And that's one of the reasons why Scottsdale, as it grows, is starting to go more vertical than horizontal, because there's no more horizontal to develop. Now, Scottsdale fondly has the name, the westmost western town. It is a cowboy town. That's the roots of the city. And if you go to Old Town Scottsdale and start there, you'll encounter plenty of boutique shops and Native American shops and all kinds of jewelry and custom boutique everything down in that area. Now, of course, it does have the big chain stores as well and the luxury stores, guys. You want to talk about dining and shopping and entertainment, Old Town Scottsdale will be the place for you. So let's talk about the lifestyle you're looking for. Well, if you're looking for that upbeat, fast-paced walkability to where you're going, then Old Town Scottsdale does provide that. See, a lot of people think that Arizona is so spread out, and Phoenix in general is so spread out, that you just don't have a lot of walkability. And they would be true in saying that. But in Old Town Scottsdale, you have a pocket right around that area where you have a huge and high walkability score to get to where you live, to a coffee shop, to a restaurant, to shopping, to your work, and so on and so forth. So the hustle and bustle lifestyle is what you want. In fact, the New York Times has been quoted in calling Old Town Scottsdale very similar to the entertainment districts of the Buckhead area in Atlanta and the South Beach area in Miami. So that is high esteem to live up to. And guys, most of the time, it does. Now, the thing about Scottsdale is, generally speaking, as you head north over those 31 miles, the more north you get, the older the demographic of people also you get as well. So if you're a younger professional, maybe a younger family, or just a family with kids in general, Central Scottsdale is going to have more of that. You have amazing master plan communities like McCormick Ranch, Scottsdale Ranch, Stonegate, Ancala, McDowell Mountain Ranch, and the list goes on. There's so many great places to live and settle down with roots to raise a family. And the school district in this area is very good. Now, overall, Scottsdale has 5 high schools, and the Scottsdale Unified District is one of the top 3 districts, depending on the year that you actually research, every single year in the entire Arizona area. So it is a good public school district, and it has a lot of charter and private school options as well. So you get a little bit of everything you need when it comes to the education side, from pre-K all the way through high school. And then of course, there is Scottsdale Community College as well. Located right there in the South Scottsdale area, it is a great place for a 2-year associate's degree if you're looking to maybe have that in between time before going to a 4-year university. And then as you approach the North Scottsdale area, you still have some great communities that are more family oriented, like Greyhawk and DC Ranch. But as you go further north into the North Scottsdale area, you will notice that the age of people does start to change. Now, there are some families in that area, but overall, people living in these areas have older kids or kids that are grown, not even living in the household anymore, or people that have a second home, snowbirds, things of that nature, generally speaking. So that gives you the overall lay of the land when it comes to demographics for Scottsdale and the lifestyle you may be looking for. So to sum that part up, if you're looking for the super convenience of the gig economy and getting someplace quick and the walkability, Old Town South Scottsdale will be your place. If you're looking for more of a semi-fast-paced lifestyle, but you have kids and you're going to ball games and you have little leagues for all the sports, baseball, football, basketball, you name it, golf lessons, then the Central Scottsdale overall may be your best place. And if you're looking for more of a laid-back, natural desert beauty in your front yard that cannot be touched, and you're not worried about going to the airport every day for work or going to an office 30 minutes away for work, then North Scottsdale would be more of the place for you. But pivoting on that to transportation, let's talk about that for a second, because how far away are most major things from these different areas within Scottsdale? That's a good question. Overall, I would give transportation in Scottsdale a 8 to 9 out of 10. That's just my personal feeling. Why? Because if you look at the map of Scottsdale here, you have two major arteries that go north and south from the South Scottsdale all the way to North Scottsdale, and that is Pima Road and Scottsdale Road. In addition to that, you also have the 101, which sits right outside of Pima Road and runs north-south through South Scottsdale and Central Scottsdale before turning and curving to the west, heading towards Phoenix. So you have a lot of traffic that can choose to go north and south in multiple different ways. And when you go east-west, you have the main artery of Shea Boulevard running from Central Scottsdale in the far east side all the way through to the west side of Scottsdale and into Phoenix. Then you have multiple major roads and exits off the 101 that go from the South Scottsdale area all the way up to the North Scottsdale area, giving the ability for quick transportation around the city. See, most of the city is built on a grid system. In fact, most of Phoenix is built on a grid system, making it very easy to figure out how to get to places and where to go and to make that GPS pretty darn accurate. Let's talk about the downside of the transportation of Scottsdale. There's not a huge bus system. Now, there is a city bus that does run through parts of Scottsdale, but it's not everywhere and it's not widely used. Now, Scottsdale is more affluent, so most people do have the ability to afford their own transportation through cars and luxury vehicles and things of that nature. So that makes sense, but there's also not a public transportation aspect when it comes to a light rail or a subway like a lot of major cities have. So you don't have that aspect, which, by the way, that's a reason why a lot of people move to Scottsdale, because they don't want to be around that type of hustle and bustle. But if you are in Central Scottsdale on the far east side, around the Scottsdale Mountain Hidden Hills area, and you need to go to North Scottsdale or up in Cave Creek, then it does take a little bit of time. Why? Because you do have the McDowell Mountain Range that works at an angle, kind of a 45-degree angle in the northeast section of Scottsdale. So you have to go around those mountains, which does take a little more time, because as the crow flies, you just can't do what the crow does in Scottsdale, going in certain directions. Now, how about the Phoenix Sky Harbor Airport? What's the proximity distance for that? Now, if you're living in South Scottsdale, you're probably looking at about 15 minutes to Phoenix Sky Harbor at the most. See, Sky Harbor is centrally located right in the center of Phoenix, which makes it convenient for almost wherever you live in the valley. But in South Scottsdale, you are pretty close. Now, in Central Scottsdale, you might tack on another 5 minutes depending on where you are. So it's very convenient to get to Sky Harbor Airport from Central Scottsdale. And then if you're in North Scottsdale, it's going to vary based upon where you're at. But typically the traffic flows decently, and you can get to Sky Harbor in 25 to 35 minutes based upon where you're going to be located in North Scottsdale. So it's not bad at all. Now, if you're flying privately out of the Scottsdale Airport, which, by the way, the Scottsdale Airport is one of the busiest private airports in the entire country. Not only do you have people that have their own custom private jets flying in and out of there and corporate jets, but you also have private aviation going out of there, like Jet Suite X or JSX, these different companies that provide airfare through private jets, and they fly right out of Scottsdale Air Park. So if you're going to someplace, especially regionally, like somewhere in California, maybe Las Vegas, somewhere on the West Coast, there are a lot of options to fly actually somewhat economically on a private jet right out of Scottsdale Air Park, and that is phenomenal convenience. And the last thing about transportation, let's talk about traffic flow. This is important, guys. This is very important, because do you want to be stuck in rush hour going to work back and forth all the time? No. And the cool thing is, because the Scottsdale Air Park is such a huge employment center, it is the second largest employment center in all of Phoenix, behind downtown Phoenix. There are a lot of people who drive from outside the city of Scottsdale into the Scottsdale Airport. So if you live in Scottsdale, most likely you'll be commuting against all the heavy traffic, which is phenomenal. So when it's backed up going this way, you'll be going that way, and vice versa coming home, because a lot of people can't afford to live in Scottsdale, and so they are commuting to work in the city. But if you live there already and you work in Scottsdale, that will be easy. And if you work outside of Scottsdale, that will be pretty easy too, because you'll be going the opposite direction of the heavy traffic flow. Now let's talk about one of my favorite things that I don't believe gets talked about enough, and that is the natural desert beauty landscape of Scottsdale. See, again, Scottsdale sits at the foothills of the McDowell Mountain Range, and you have two iconic mountains right there called Thompson's Peak and Pinnacle Peak. And they are iconic mountains that both have trailheads, and there are countless hiking trails throughout the area of Scottsdale. You also have the McDowell Mountain Sonoran Preserve area, which is the Gateway Trailhead, which is an amazing trailhead as well. And there are so many places you can mountain bike at Browns Ranch Trailhead, or you can road bike throughout the city. A lot of bike lanes everywhere, but the natural desert landscape is just gorgeous, guys. Now, Scottsdale only averages about 7 inches of rain a year, but when it does, the mountains actually get green for a short period of time before going back to the brown. And then when the sun sets multiple times throughout the year, you know, the Purple Mountains Majesty in the America the Beautiful song, that's what I envision the author of that song saw. He was looking at the McDowell Mountains seriously when the sun was setting on a beautiful night, because they literally turn purple, and it is gorgeous. So you just have a phenomenal place to call home, to experience the outdoor lifestyle that you always wanted. And speaking of that, part of the natural beauty is golf. Guys, Scottsdale is the golf mecca of the world. There are 27 private clubs that you have options to be a part of and join as a member just in Scottsdale alone. There are over 200 golf courses in and around the Scottsdale area that you have the option to go play at, and they are phenomenal courses for the most part. Obviously, you have the more economical courses, but you have the gorgeous luxury courses with the desert golf that just are beautiful and meticulously maintained. Now, the golf is pricey in Scottsdale when it's during the season and the weather is awesome. Why? Because so many people come in from out of state to golf and experience the golf in Scottsdale, and they're willing to pay whatever the price is. It doesn't matter, because they're visiting and they're on vacation, and they're willing to open their checkbook and just go ahead and pay. But for the average person who lives in Scottsdale, it can get pricey this time of year. But there are things that you can do to combat that, like you can buy a Troon Club where you get discounts of all their courses, and they manage quite a few in the Scottsdale area. You can actually wait until the shoulder seasons of April and May, or October and September, or even the summer seasons as well when it's really hot, because that's when the prices come way down. In the summertime, you can play a golf course that normally is going to charge between $300 and $500 for a tee time in the season, for $50 to $60 when it's the middle of the summer. So, and the golf is just as good. It's just, unfortunately, a lot more hot. But the golf is great. And a lot of people do actually join country clubs, guys. See, overall, the lifestyle in Scottsdale is just a little more laid back. The dress code, the business climate, you don't see a lot of people actually wearing a suit and tie when on a business type appointment in the Scottsdale area. Most people wear dress pants and a golf shirt, and that is very much so appropriate when living in Scottsdale. You gotta love that about the area. They're just more laid back. In fact, if you belong to a country club, most of the dress codes will require that you have a collared shirt, maybe a golf shirt of some sort, but that's about it. You have to wear covered shoes most of the time, but you can wear shorts, you can wear a golf shirt. You don't have to be in a suit and tie or some sort of fancy outfit to be able to experience dining in your golf club if you belong to a country club. And that is just the Arizona way in general, which you gotta love, as opposed to other cities across America where it's definitely more uptight. You're in a suit and tie, it's very formal. Arizona, not that way. Now let's pivot to water, because I want to address this because this is a non-issue in the city of Scottsdale. Most of the suburbs throughout the entire Phoenix area have what is called a Assured Water Supply Certificate. What that means is that is good if you have that certificate for 100 years rolling into the future. And so if you have that 100-year guaranteed water supply, then you will be good for 100 years based upon what the local government says they have for population growth and future growth of the city and water usage. So we do not have a water issue in the city of Scottsdale, contrary to a lot of bad headlines that were written about a year ago that circulated throughout the country, and everyone panicked thinking, oh my goodness, Phoenix has a water issue, Scottsdale has a water issue, probably shouldn't go there. That is not the case. Now there's one area called the Rio Verde Foothills that did have a water issue, but it wasn't because they didn't have water or the water was running out. It's because they are an unincorporated area that has Scottsdale addresses that was serviced in terms of the water supply by the city of Scottsdale for years and years and years. Well, that contract ran out and the city of Scottsdale gave them a couple years notice saying that they need to find their own or a different water supply because they will be ending that contract. Well, the powers that be in charge of the Rio Verde's foothill didn't actually take it that serious, didn't do much about it, and then when the contract came up, they cut off their water. And so that was the big hoopla for out there, but there's plenty of water, guys. Because the Rio Verde foothills is kind of more out in the country, if you will, in an unincorporated area for the most part, a lot of these houses have well water, which is a huge supply of water for them. But for the ones that did not have well water, this became a problem. And so they worked it out, and now the city of Scottsdale is supplying water to them again. So how that contractually all figured out, I don't know. But the reality is there's just plenty of politics and contracts that got in the way. I mean, go figure. Who would think that politics would have get in the way of anything, right? Now, I want to talk about housing and address that. But before we do, let's talk about the elephant in the room, and that is weather. Kelly, you haven't talked about weather yet, and that is a big deal because in the summer, it is hot. Yes, that is true. There's no doubt that the weather is one of the biggest pros to live in Scottsdale for the majority of the year. However, there is the flip side, the dark side of this, which is it gets hot in the summertime. There is no two ways about it. When you hit the first or second week of June, it starts approaching 100 degrees every single day or more, and it stays there for most of the summer all the way through the end of September for the most part. So you have 8 months that are actually really pleasant for the most part. You have a couple shoulder months of October and May that can be a little toasty sometimes, but then you have the rest of those months which are just gorgeous like it is at this time of the year. But for those 4 months in Scottsdale, we call that summer. See, I call Scottsdale having 2 seasons: awesomeness for 8 months and hot for 4 months. And that's how it is. So you get used to it over time, but there's no question that it is hot, but your AC bill is going to be higher those times of the year. That's just how it is. Now, the great thing is that the electrical companies here in the Scottsdale, Phoenix area, they actually do have and offer an equalizer plan where they allow you to actually average out your bill across the entire 12 months so that if you are budgeting, you don't have to be caught off guard by huge spikes of your electricity bill because the AC is running all the time in those summer months. So that is a good thing that you may want to look into. But the reality is you'll be going from air conditioning to air conditioning to air conditioning, right? The office, the home, the car, the entire summer long. Now you do get used to the warm, excessive heat. Your body your blood thins out and you do get used to it. It is a real thing. But if you do want to experience the outdoor lifestyles, you can still have that possibility, which is what I love about Arizona. Yes, it gets hot, but in the winter, in the Northeast or the Midwest, you really can't do anything for the times when it's super cold and snowy, unless it's inside, of course. Well, in Arizona, you have your inside activities, but your outdoor activities are still an option if you go early in the morning. People still hike, they bike, they play golf early in the morning. Sun gets up about 5:30 a.m. You can get out and do what you want to do until about 10 to 11 when it really starts to heat up. But if you have some shade, if you have your sunscreen on, if you are well hydrated, and that doesn't mean drinking that morning, that means drinking water the night before, ideally, so you can experience the outdoor lifestyle 12 months out of the year, even though sometimes it's a little more pleasant than others, but you can do that while living in Scottsdale, Arizona, which is phenomenal. That's one of the reasons a lot of people love living down in Scottsdale. Now let's talk about cost of living, because overall, that would be a con when it comes to Scottsdale. See, Scottsdale's never really been affordable when it comes to the other places in the valley to live. Scottsdale's always been more of the more affluent area to live in, and it's still that way today. In fact, the biggest driver of that, it is the housing cost. The median price in January 2020 in Scottsdale was $498,000. Today, it is $839,000 just 4 to 5 years later. So that is a huge increase in the cost of housing in Scottsdale. Now, this has been driven by post-COVID migration patterns of population across America, primarily from the other West Coast cities, Seattle, Portland, San Francisco, San Diego, Los Angeles, where their home prices were always a lot more than they were in Scottsdale. And because COVID drove a lot of people out of those places, they came to Scottsdale and flocked there because they could get a cheaper house in a phenomenal location. And so they didn't care what the cost was. And this drove prices up over the past 4 to 5 years. And by the way, the money that's out there in America still is pouring into Scottsdale, and the luxury home market is booming in the Scottsdale area, and there's no slowdown really in sight. So that could be a good thing for the local economy and a good thing for certain aspects of the local economy of Scottsdale, but it also is a negative thing for someone who's looking to maybe move into Scottsdale that already lives in Phoenix, or maybe lives in another area of the country that they don't have a huge home value with a ton of equity they can pull out and move into a Scottsdale home. Currently, there are 119 homes on the market for sale, over $5 million alone. But can you get something affordable in Scottsdale Scottsdale, there are condos that are actually 1 bedroom or a studio for as low as around $200,000 in the Old Town Scottsdale area. It's an older condo, it's a smaller condo, it may not be remodeled, but the ability to live in Scottsdale does exist in the $200,000 mark. Just depends on what type of property type you're looking for. For a family that has a couple of kids, you can get a 3-bedroom, 2-bath home in Central Scottsdale in the $500,000 to $600,000 to $700,000 range right there, depending again on where you're at within Scottsdale and of course the specs of the house. So the ability to live in Scottsdale does exist for someone who's not rich or ultra wealthy, but it won't look like maybe some of those people who are with the big, huge custom estates. With everything that Scottsdale has going for it, from the location it has within the Phoenix Valley area to the location it has within the Southwest United States and how close it is to other major cities that you can take a flight for less than 1 hour away. And all the art districts, guys, they have over 125 art districts and galleries in Scottsdale alone, to the golf clubs, to the private country clubs, to the housing, the public education, the private education, and all the world-class shopping, entertainment, and dining options. Scottsdale is a place that's poised to continue to take off in the future as one of America's great suburbs or cities. So hopefully you believe that Scottsdale is worth all the hype, but maybe you don't. That's okay too. Comment below and let us know what your thoughts are about living in Scottsdale. We would love to know your opinion on that and your thoughts. And if you have any questions about Scottsdale or anything else, please give me a call at 480-660-5974. We would love to chat with you about your current situation and any questions you have. And check us out on our Instagram page at Kelly Cook Homes as well. We're putting out daily content for your education and of course, your enjoyment. Guys, make it a wonderful day and don't forget,